Hello and welcome to a special edition of Garry Talks Film, live from the Radisson Red Hotel in Galway for the FÍS TV Summit 2026. We have a brilliant episode for you this week. I will be chatting to producer Mark Herbert of the phenomenal Netflix show Adolescence.
The amount of people that have come up to me, whether it's in a pub in Sheffield or like a football match or a gym or whatever, and gone, oh, you know what, I had a chat with my son, my daughter, teenager, and I did think it helped provoke communication and just saying to people, just ask them, just talk to them, even though it might be an uncomfortable chat.
Yeah. I'll also be talking to Galway-born director Mia Mullarkey.
Because women are amazing storytellers and have such a deep understanding of human nature, which is really what it is we're trying to talk about. So you really want to bring those voices to the table. And the same with people who are differently able. Like, those lived experiences are so powerful. Like, my role will be keeping the conversation going.
Also talking to me in this week's episode is TG Cahir's commissioning editor Proinsias Ghráinne.
Apart from language, there's also this identity. People are suddenly questioning about identity. It's not diversity niche. It's not. It's actually identity, whether I am a Sami, whether I'm Australian, with Irish, Spanish, whatever,
But joining me first is Galway-born writer and actor Nora-Jane Noone.
I had survivors coming up to me, and I was only maybe 18 years old, and I had these people who had lived this experience for real. And there were so many. Getting emotional just remembering it, actually. It was really impactful, and I will always feel incredibly proud about that.
Garry Talks Film, kindly supported by Grace on Demand Skillnet and the Rap Commission. Nora-Jane Noone, welcome to the FÍS TV Summit here in the Radisson Red Hotel in Galway. Thanks so much for joining us in Garry Talks Film. And well done, you're just after participating in a panel discussion on Hidden Assets, which has been season 3, another successful season. And I want to go back to, it's about nearly 25 years since you first started professionally acting, and that was with the Magdalene Sisters and all about the Laundries. And I think it was a huge turning point in Ireland because the dramatisation of the stories really brought to light what was going on behind those high grey walls and in those old buildings many, many years ago. Looking back now with perspective of 20 plus years, what are your thoughts on the impact that that film had on Irish society?
Massive. And I think it opened my eyes to how much a film and how much telling stories can impact society, because I really was, completely green. Through the process of making the Magdalene Sisters, we watched documentaries, we learned a lot about what was going on. But I think it was afterwards when the film came out and at screenings, I had survivors coming up to me. And I was only maybe 18 years old, and I had these people who had lived this experience for real, or the children of these people in America. And there were so many. Getting emotional just remembering it, actually. It was really impactful. And I will always feel incredibly proud about that, being part of that. I think, that just really opened my mind to how important it is to...
It's because you feel you gave them a voice.
Well, yeah, I was part of that. I was a small part of that. I didn't write the movie and I didn't direct it, but I just being the face, I guess, of a survivor to them meant so much. And so it's just incredibly humbling. And I think that more than even the success of the film is what stayed with me. Yeah.
Because like me, you too grew up in Galway, and there was a Magdalene laundry there across from the bus station now in Galway. But
my dad was a delivery boy. He delivered some of the laundry for just a little while when he was 13. And it's so funny because it's like the worst kept secret. It seems like when the film was being made and the Irish government didn't want to fund it at the time, it didn't want it to, so it had to be made in Scotland. And then all of a sudden when it came out, everybody had a story. Everybody. I had no idea my dad worked there or worked to delivering to the laundries. And apparently his grandmother had allowed a girl who escaped from the laundry to kind of hide in her house for a minute and then went out the back, and she kind of went off. They don't know what happened to her after that. But it's really, it was just really wild to me how known it was, and yet how scared people were to really talk about it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And your career then started really evolving and, you know, started gaining traction, and you were over in the UK and you started working in television soaps. So you were in Coronation Street and Holby City. Tell me about that period. Like, what was in your head at the time? Where did you want to be taking your career?
I think I was just starting out. I was just learning the ropes, because when I did the Magdalene Sisters, I was a complete unknown. I had no idea the kind of practicality in the day in, day out of being an actor. So I did science degree in Galway, and then once I'd finished, I went to London to become an actor. And I kind of had to fly by the seat of my pants. You know, I had to I learned so much about auditioning, how to prepare scenes, how to understand character and scripts, learning accents, learning the politics of getting a job and all of that. There was so much I had to learn on the job. And so I was just excited to get any experience, really, to be honest with you. And it was, it was amazing. And I got The Descent. I think that was the first job I got actually after I landed. And I'm still good friends with those girls. So that's, cool. So it's, I found my community.
Yeah. But what's important then? Is it the drama school you go to, or is it the auditions, or is it the agent you get, or is it the city you go to?
Well, I didn't go to drama school. So that's, I think it's just about being curious and learning as much as you can. There's a balance. I think what I found was there's a balance. I had such a sort of imposter syndrome in not going to drama school and having to learn my skills as I went along, that maybe I focused too much on what I didn't know in the beginning and wasn't trusting the intuition and the instinct that I did have.
And was that total on you, or would you think some people were a little bit nasty or kind of?
I think it was kind of both. It was my own sense of insecurity and kind of being daunted at being thrown into a whole new world. But also, maybe there was an element that there weren't many non-actors at the time. It wasn't as much of a common thing as it is now. Yeah. There was maybe an attitude of like, well, you have to do it this way. But I wish, I had trusted what I did have a little bit more in the beginning. But I found, you find that balance as you go along.
Yeah. So then your time living in the UK, like you're living back in the West now. You're back living
in
Galway. So just that period of working in the UK and so on, what was the nudge to move back to Ireland?
Well, I went to the States for 8, almost 9 years first. I was in London 11 and then almost 9 in LA.
So when you did Brooklyn, were you in America
I
at that
was
stage?
just moving. Yeah, I just got my green card.
Okay.
Yeah. So I arrived and they were doing screenings of Brooklyn, which was kind of mad. So I think I went to LA I like the idea of the kind of the freedom and the kind of non-apologetic, and the fact that it's a clear slate and you get to kind of maybe do completely different things than what you're known for.
Okay.
And also it just being a different culture and there being different kind of projects. You can try out all sorts of maybe random things that aren't really being made in Europe. Yeah. So that was really fun. And it was a real education with like pilot season and the kind of boot camp of that.
And being Irish, did that help for the American perspective?
Yeah. It was definitely, there was more of an enthusiasm about being Irish in LA, which was really nice as well.
So you really played on the accent.
I had to ham it up, and they were like, you don't sound Irish enough. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so it was great. I think all of those experiences just taught me so much. And then in having a child, and America burning and going crazy, it just made sense. I think from the moment I started thinking about having kids as well, I was thinking about home and thinking about how you would want to raise your child and what you'd want them to be shaped by. Yeah,
like a lot of Americans have moved to Ireland in recent times, but even before the administration had changed, a lot of people were getting, like I know people who were concerned about raising young people with the amount of gun violence, for example, taking place, and children having to be trained from an early age of how to hide in lockers when an alarm goes off. And like, was that, do you think, feeding into your subconscious?
Yeah, huge. I knew a couple of people whose little kids had been in shootings. They weren't hurt, but like that's California, and you wouldn't expect, LA to have that much gun violence, maybe compared to other parts of the States. But yeah, that was a real wake-up call.
Wow.
Yeah, and you just think it's not worth it.
Yeah. So for someone looking to become an actor now, Ireland is very different to what it was 25 years ago as an industry in both film and television. So you have Ireland, you have the likes of London, you have the likes of the States. Where do you think one, you know, if they've no children, they've no mortgage, they're free to go wherever they want, where do you think they should best position themselves?
I think it depends on what you're looking for, you know, and what, you know, style of acting you're interested in. Are you wanting to explore all sorts of things? You know, for me, I love variety. And so I loved doing, because I didn't go to drama school, I did all sorts of different workshops, and there was clowning, you know, there was physical theater workshops. There was all sorts of things that I just found fascinating, and you can kind of patchwork together in your own little toolkit. So I loved that, just having kind of a wide overview that you can pick from and create your own unique sort of process or your own unique perspective. But I do think there's something to be said for having community. And there's lots of amazing places like, you know, Bow Street and Gatey, and places in Ireland that you can have your peers, and then you grow up together, and you always have those connections as you're starting out. Because I have to say, I did miss that in the beginning, you know. So I think just be curious, do as much as you can, seek out the things that really excite you, and try and find your community.
So when you read a script then,
yes,
what screams out for you of, yes, I want to do this project?
I guess if it's just something you really resonate with and relate to, and or something unique that you find exciting. So
like Hidden Assets, for example, you've done 2 seasons now on that show. Like, what excites you when you read the script and say, yeah, even we say it's coming in season 2, like what excited you and resonated where it's like, okay, yeah, I definitely want to get involved?
Well, I think the fact that it's just a really smart international show. And I haven't seen anything like that come out of Ireland before. So that was really exciting. The scope of it, you know, the fact that it could appeal broadly internationally as well. And, you know, the fact that there was so much in the news, so much that was relevant and, you know, really of now about the story as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when there's a, you know, a true story behind it, I always find it, you know, more interesting or more fascinating.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. And then TV in general, because we are here at the FÍS Television Summit in Galway, and you've worked on both film and TV, and again, streaming is changing up the whole industry a lot as well, and there's pros and cons to that. Where do you see Irish television now on the global platform?
Oh, I think it's just been going from strength to strength every year, you know, making more unique and more kind of cutting edge sort of TV shows. It's growing every year. It's really exciting to see things cross over and go international as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you yourself then finally, like you are looking now to, well, you've been writing for years, but you really want to execute now and start writing and directing. What are you thinking? Short films, features, docs, TV shows? What's the thing that's really pulling you in?
Well, yeah, it's been a few years, and I'm just sort of looking for, I guess, schemes and programs that provide mentorship and kind of support and training. Because again, you know, community and collaboration is what I love and what I've done most of all as an actor. And I love the writing. I love diving into a story and getting completely lost in something and creating worlds, which you don't necessarily get to do as an actor. But in the long haul, doing it on your own is, you know, it's a kind of a lonely enough process. And so you will learn so much better and so much quicker when you're getting feedback, when you're getting, you know, bouncing off ideas with people and just guidance. So yeah, I'm just kind of looking for my first step in the door.
But I mean, the good thing is you've probably read hundreds of scripts at this stage.
That's
so
what
you know
I'm hoping.
What's good
yeah, I'm hoping by
isn't.
osmosis it's sort of, yeah.
Yeah, like naturally I'd say you've built up a structure now, what works and what doesn't work. And I think even an actor writing a script, you know how to make characters more interesting, stand out from the story.
Yeah, and just finding, you know, just being able to have the hands-on experience where you get to kind of maybe validate the experience you do have and what you are good at, and get to see that. But you also kind of get to see, where you need to fill in the gaps and where you need to work. And I don't think you ever learn more than just by doing. So yeah, that's the goal. That's the
brilliant
next step.
I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Continued success with all your work. Thanks
Thank you
again,
so
Nora-Jane. Project ní Ghráinne commission editor TG Carr, Fault-Year-Old.
Garry.
It's great to have you here. You're here today in the Radisson Red Hotel in Galway for the FÍS Television Summit 2026. And a lot of change happening in the television landscape over the last number of years. So I want to talk to you about that. But firstly, I suppose for someone who's looking to get something made, one thing a commission editor always asks is, what advice, what tips would you give? You made a great statement there in the panel discussion earlier on where when people bring ideas to TG Carr, they try and they might bring a celebrity or someone well-known to the project and say, look, they have some cúpla focal, we'll wing it. And that doesn't work for the Sulala. Can you kind of go and explain a bit deeper really what it is that you're looking for and get rid of that misconception for people?
Yeah, first of all, I think TG Carr is looking for what every other broadcaster is looking for in terms of original material. Well cast, resonates with the broadest possible audience because we broadcast as Gaeilge, which is a niche. We don't have room for any more niches within that. So everything else has to be quite mainstream. But how to engage that mainstream audience, that's maybe how there's a misconception. And very often, genuinely made by people who don't have a day-to-day connection with the language, that they think you need a celebrity who works in English and Irish and is famous in English to reach audiences. And, would second guess TG Carr's wish that we're, crawling out into the English world of celebrities in order to be relevant, attractive, resonate, any of these things. And the opposite is true. Couldn't be less true that, first of all, there is, I don't know what celebrities we have in Ireland, but we have, a raft of fantastic people who can speak Irish very well. They don't use Irish in their daily lives. They're not known through their Irish. They're known for another skill. But, and they're not TV stars, but I think, we need to look into sport, music, actors, all other fields of life to find Irish language speakers who can be taken out of that and give them a new role, put them through a new lens. And I spoke about how people second guess what they think we would like, what TG Carr would like. And it's not laziness, but it's kind of a perception that, there's about 10 kind of Irish language speakers who are, top presenters in Ireland. That's, again, not really acquainting themselves enough with the Irish language world. From an Irish language producer, you'd never get that because they would be looking down the road. Who's interested in my parish or who's interested in my football team that could be good? It works the other way around. The most thing that excites us about, a project is if we're pitched new talent and if there is a link of, even on the iPhone, of an example of this talent. That's a great start, an original idea, a new talent. And we build it from there through development. But an idea that's rehashed in English and this celebrity, Gaeilge put on, it doesn't work. And then, that statement I spoke this morning of, he will pull it off. If you hear those words, oh my God, you're guaranteed he or she will not pull it off. And by the time the production is
I'm probably
over,
guilty of that statement myself.
everybody is going, oh my good God, this is sinful. Let the person speak in English. They're more comfortable.
Yeah.
And that is very, a reversioning program. If you have an English version for sales purposes, and there's nothing wrong with that, that's broadcast outside of Ireland, and an Irish language version. And if there's a huge difference between the two, then you've done the Irish language production a disservice and done the person a disservice.
Yeah.
Because they're too busy remembering lines. They can't be themselves, and they can't interact, and they can't muck into the production.
Yeah.
So talent it's so important. And there is no excuse nowadays because so many people speak Irish.
Well, this is true because I think from my perspective, growing up in an English language speaking house, when TG Carr came out, it was working for Gaeltacht areas because in city areas, not a lot of people spoke Irish. And over the last 20 years, there's been a huge surge, especially by young people, in the love of the language, speaking the Changa on a daily basis. The Gael schools are full. The summer schools are full out in the Gaeltacht areas. So you've had this huge surge now of young Irish speakers in the country. So that's great because there's new talent emerging. But at the same time, the landscape has changed a lot now because TG Carr is competing with streamers. You have your Netflix, you have Disney Plus, you have Paramount. So it's completely changed the landscape where now, I suppose, you have the linear of output on TG Carr as a broadcast channel, but you're also trying to grow on the digital platforms where the young people are, like YouTube and the various social media channels. It's difficult.
It is difficult, but we have to go back to our remit. Our remit is, first and foremost, to make content for Irish language speakers, for native Irish speakers, and then for speakers of Irish. And then secondly, through subtitling, we have to be a broadcaster for all of Ireland. And then thirdly, be the streamer, do the catch up. And as you say, TG Carr is a media brand. It's a media service. It's not a TV channel anymore.
Yeah.
And that is a challenge, but it's also, it's an advantage that we're the only kid on the block. We're the only Irish language visual multi-platform service.
Yeah.
And we're the only ones who have a dedicated, this BBC and I do fantastic work, and RT have great Irish language programs. But as a dedicated service, that's a big advantage, having that gifted to you in a way. And it's how we fill that space. I don't think we will ever compete with English language streamers. We're in a different market, and if we try and use that measurement, then we're back to the very old, futile arguments about how Irish language stacks up next to English language, which is the biggest language in the world. There is no stacking up there. We're a minority language. And the same would be said for Welsh with S4C, who's smack bang right beside Channel 4 and BBC Wales. But they have a very clear remit. And after that, it goes out in terms of building IP, in terms of being commercially successful and producing, helping stuff to be produced that is commercially saleable and the producers can have a living and thrive in this industry. I commissioned Kneecap, and that year of Kneecap was an eye-opener, not just for the 100 odd awards that it made, but every Monday morning there was from Wildcard in the inbox was saying this movie has grossed the biggest, gross in Australia, in Africa, now the common denominator there is that there is also, apart from language, there's also this identity. People are suddenly questioning about identity. They're suddenly celebrating identity. It's not diversity niche. It's not. It's actually identity, whether I am a Sami, whether I'm Australian, with Irish, Spanish, whatever, you know. Kneecap did huge in Spain, absolutely huge, for that identity thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's part and parcel. And
But go back to Kneecap, because I'm fascinated. Like, I saw the premiere of it at the Irish premiere at the Galway Film Flat, and great crack, and blown away by it, and found it really, really funny. And again, completely got this whole thing, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s in Ireland, where what you knew of Northern Ireland was pretty much the Troubles. And what is the identity now very much was a question over the last 20 years of Northern Ireland. And I don't know, did you know Kneecap at the time before you commissioned them? But like, what was you did? But what was your impression? Because for me, it would look like a big risk. It's great when it works and it does extremely well box office wise. But on paper, for me, it would have looked like a big risk. What gave you the confidence, give it the green light?
The risk was, could they act? That was the big risk. We all knew they could sing. We all knew they were fantastic Irish speakers. The script was jumping off the page. But could they act? That was the big, that was the big question. If they couldn't act, then it was something else, and we had discussions. Should there be more kind of reality, actuality in it to kind of, be a little bit safe? Should there be more scenes of Belfast kind of documentary type scenes? I remember that suggestion came from myself, and it was this kind of safety that if they can't act, at least it's kind of a hybrid-y half. And Rich Pepiot was totally against that idea. And he said, no, this is this is a movie. It's a movie, And it turned out that they could act. They could.
I actually thought they were actors. I didn't know.
They're extraordinary actors.
Original musicians.
There were obvious risks in terms of compliance. It was a very, very bold piece of work. That's the way it's written. That's the way their music, that's their brand. Rappers are supposed to annoy people. And so you can't roll back on that. So for the other partners, it was, a joy. But in the back of my head, I was saying, what am I going to do when I bring this back to the TG Ceathair lawyers? What am I going to do? The schedulers, where is it going to go? 2 a.m. in the morning, our regulators, oh my good God, for TV, it's different rules as well, It hasn't offended anybody. And, it has done a very extensive distribution. And when it's broadcast on TG Ceathair, I think if it were to offend, it would have offended at this stage.
And that's coming on the back of Colin Kuhn. Which was another successful Irish
Couldn't
feature.
be more different,
Yeah.
Shows the scope of the Irish language.
Yeah. I mean, you call it minority language, but Ireland is a minority country on the global landscape.
Yeah.
But what's coming out of it and what's coming out of it with the Irish language is unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a feature documentary on Ghráinne, The Quiet Love, that's in cinemas right now. That's the narrative is told by Irish Sign Language. We're the commissioner for that. It's not Gaelic, it's not Béarla. It's the third official language in Ireland is sign language. Brilliant. And that's why we got behind that. That again, there is, why not? Why wouldn't we? It is doing fantastic in cinemas. Again, it shows the scope of language. It's the scope of communication and of good narratives, all fantastic stories. And I think that's where it comes from. But back to the original question, we commission primarily for Irish speakers.
And does it have to be newsworthy? So Channel 4 and Virgin Media were on the panel today saying, they want to be newsworthy. So they probably want people to talk about it on the radio or, your daily tabloids publishing articles about it. Is that important for you?
Of course it's important, but not, I don't think we have that huge momentum of newsworthiness as they have in the UK. And that's in terms of fact ent, where you have somebody who strips off and, Love Island. And so that's the newsworthiness. We want to be newsworthy, whether it's stripping off in News Island or that we are, the first to tell a really important social story or political story in Ireland. Yes, we do want to be newsworthy, and we would encourage producers to really think about contemporary in terms of storytelling, not to stop looking back at the past. And if you do, it has to have a contemporary relevance. I think we've spent maybe too long looking at the past, and the stories that are around us, my God, are stranger than anything that has happened in our lifestyles before. And look into your own parish, look, you don't have to go very far to get a very good story very often.
Screen Ireland would say to transition into doing the likes of feature films, the first one should build up a track history where you do, for instance, short films, and it gets into festivals and it gets recognition through awards and so on. How does one build up track history to then get commissioned to do a documentary or even a TV series with T.G. Cahir?
I'm not sure you can have the luxury of saying that in Irish. I'm not sure you can have the luxury and sit around waiting for people to build a track history in Irish, because they might just have found an easier job and have lost interest in production, or the story is over and it's, you have probably less stories. What we do is develop a lot with producers. I can cite examples of first-time directors that went straight into their first TV hour or went straight into their first feature doc. It doesn't happen that often, probably not the huge big budget docs or dramas, but that docs that did even better, potentially. The track record, we will commission a first-time director, first-time writer, absolutely, if if we know that the support of that person is rock solid. We can only commission limited companies. That's revenue tell us that. So if the support behind the person is solid, then I don't think taking a risk on screen is that big of a risk once the business model, doesn't fall apart. And that's for everyone's sake.
And would you expect them to be Gaeil Goras? I
think a director should be an Irish speaker.
Yeah.
I think it's very strange if, something that's quite immersive or observational. I don't know how an English language director can direct in Irish, and I don't know how they expect actors or contributors to deliver, and they're the only Gaeilgeoir in the parish, and everyone else. I don't know. I think it's cruel. I think more often than not, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the editor, how can you have the rhythm of the story if you don't have the rhythm of the Irish, of the language? We make exceptions, sometimes we do, depending on the story. But we'd always insist that there is an AP or an AD or somebody on set or on location that will guarantee that what has been said is correct.
Yeah.
Because most of all for the contributor, because they don't want to be, and we all make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a continuity role that goes right into post-production. But I think that the director and the editor are the two key roles that should be as Gaeilge. The producer, it's not going to have an effect of what's on screen. And ultimately, we're only worried about the main Irish language worry is what's on screen. But I think development is key.
And in fairness, you do open your door to developing ideas with people. Yeah. You're not a closed shop, which is great.
Yeah, and we're project driven, which I think that's the best way. There are other initiatives of development for development's sake. I think there is nothing better than a young producer, director, writer, somebody who's never, but really believes in this story and how you get that story made. I think that's the quickest, best development you can have. In terms of what has been broadcast, how many hours, that's irrelevant to T.G. Cahir. It really is irrelevant. whether you're on community TV, national TV, Netflix, it's actually quite irrelevant to us. Your track record or commercial track record, it's great to commission material that's commercially successful. But in the initially commissioning, your past commercial success actually isn't discussed around the table when we're shortlisting submissions. Not at all.
Excellent. So finally then, is there any projects coming out down the line that you're excited about being broadcast?
There's loads. Yeah, there's tons. Yeah. We have a huge slate at the moment. We have some great, I look after music. We have some really, really exciting music docs. One is taking the road to Scandinavia.
Wow.
It's 1 hour in each in the Scandinavian countries. It's travel, it's music, it's performance, it's snow. It's, we haven't been to Scandinavia properly. That's exciting. We're also developing a very, very big project, coast to coast, the history of Irish music in America. So not just traditional, it'll take other genres. We're looking at co-producing more and more content on Irish communities abroad. We're looking at workers in Australia, the medical, the people who drive the big diggers.
Yeah.
Fantastic Irish speakers down there. Of course, we should be down there. Same in Canada, the mines in Canada, all of these pockets. So there's lots going on. There's so much going on. Yeah.
Brilliant. Garry Mullarkey for coming in.
Appreciate
it so much and continued success with all the great work at TG Canada. Director Mia Mullarkey, thank you so much for joining us on Garry Talks Film here at the FÍS Television Summit. Congratulations on the great success that you have had throughout your career, but even recently now with Hidden Assets and so on. It's great that we're now in an industry where we have female directors and female directors doing so well within the industry and being recognized and getting praise across the board and so on. But for people who mightn't be fully familiar with your career, it's really interesting because, as we were saying before we started recording, you didn't actually do the direct route of studying film and television in college. You went down a different route. Talk to us about that and why did you go down that route?
Yeah, I studied psychology and philosophy here in Galway. And then I did a conversion diploma and I sort of I studied neuroscience, which I loved. And I also specialized in behaviorism. So I worked with kids with autism for a while, kids with different learning difficulties. And then I pivoted into documentary making. So I kind of used my psychology and neuroscience background. And I set up a production company with Alice McDowell, and we did a lot of sort of neuroscience-oriented documentaries, which was like a great way to sort of learn the art of storytelling and sort of learn, like we would have done a lot of it, just the two of us, producing, writing, directing, editing. We sort of just, doing it all as a small production company.
But neuroscience is a form of understanding it to do storytelling was more the interest rather than working in it as a medic, should we say?
Oh, yeah. So basically there was like science on screen, grants available, and we were telling sort of biomedical research stories where we would follow a particular patient who's going through a sort of research journey with a brilliant research body that was usually based in Galway. And so one of the stories was about Parkinson's research, another one was about bipolar disorder. So that it was an amazing training ground. It was also just learning the craft of storytelling. And so I did a number of like short documentaries, TV docs and doc series. And when COVID hit, I had always kind of wanted to go into drama. So that was like a perfect opportunity because the whole world was going through this big transition. And so I made my first short drama that came out maybe 2021. And I was very lucky because I had Lenny Abramson as a mentor. So Screen Ireland had opened up this new mentoring scheme. And so I was one of the first to apply. And I had him for a whole year as I was kind of working.
And did you say, I want Lenny, and they got him?
Yeah.
For you? Okay,
yeah.
love it.
Because I've always loved his work.
Yeah.
I just think his films are fabulous. And you were supposed to list 3 directors and they would give you one. And I just put Lenny down. So I was like,
3 times.
Yeah, exactly. I was very persistent. But that was great because I didn't have confidence yet. I'd never really worked with actors, or I'd never really worked with screenwriters. So,
and had you done film school as a teenager or anything like that during the summer?
Yeah, I did a film course in the Galway Film Centre. What age was I? I was probably like 17 or something. Mm-hmm. But I didn't plan to become a filmmaker by that stage. I went and studied psychology after that and worked in that area. So I think it was after I traveled the world for maybe 2 years doing a lot of work with children. So I'd been working with children from the age of like 17 up to the age of maybe 24. And on one of those trips, it was in Peru. I was working for 4 months with street children, and I borrowed a small camcorder from the Galway Film Centre. It was a really old Banjax thing, so they were like, take it for free, it's fine. Which is very generous. And I would make these very short documentaries for this NGO that I was working in, where I would just follow the lives of the street children and look at the sports they were being given. And I loved that process. So that was a real turning point. So when I came back to Ireland, I thought, you know what? I really love documentary making, because it's all like, I love psychology, but I much prefer to be in the world and connecting with people and understanding them through their lived experience rather than, analytically or quantitatively. So there was something about the camera that gave you access to the world. So that was really a turning point, was working in Peru, just making these short videos for this NGO. So when I came home, I moved to Dublin and I bought myself a camcorder and I started doing like promo videos, really rudimentary. I was the whole team. I had a tripod on one shoulder and a camera on the other, and I would just do these very simple promos. But it was enough to save up money to then, make my first short documentary, which was about my brother who has autism. And I put that into festivals, and it was like, trial by error, small steps. And then myself and my pal Alice made this production company. But yeah, so then once after COVID and after that, I started doing a lot of training schemes. This is kind of what I was talking about in that panel there. So like mentorship, shadowing, different kind of, like National Talent Academy do a lot of training, and different enterprises like that. So then, through all of those, like I did Norty, Storyland, and through those channels, I was able to start working in TV drama, which is where I am now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to touch on the very first thing you said, which was about, isn't it great that there's a lot of women directing? But actually, there is not. So in TV, there's a good amount, but in general, Screen Ireland launched their slate in January, so just last month.
Yeah.
And if you look at feature films, there are so few female writers and so few female directors. So actually the stats are terrible at the moment. So,
and why do you think that is?
So in 2016, there was this really good international summit in Limerick, and they talked about gender in cinema, and the head of the Swedish Film Board had set up a 50-50 quota in Sweden, and that started to really realign the whole balance. And she said the effect, the result of that was that they were getting more awards internationally because there was more interesting stories coming out into the market. And so Ireland followed, and we had a 50-50 quota, and we had like additional grants.
In the film board at the
time.
from
the Irish Film Board at the time, Screen Ireland now. And so there was a kind of incentivizing, which was brilliant. And they were really monitoring the statistics, and not just for women, but like people of color, LGBT+, like all these different sort of underrepresented groups. So I don't know if like they took their foot off the pedal a little bit, because it was like, well, the numbers are lifting, the pressure's off. It still needs a lot of active engagement and administration and recording of numbers to try and address those balances. So I don't know exactly why the numbers plummeted so massively in the last 2 years, but the slate this year and last year are brutally bad. So like I'm fortunate in that I sort of pivoted into TV drama and fell in with, really gorgeous producers who I love, Kate Lennon and Siobhan Burke. But I feel like there's a huge gender gap. And like all like people of color, people who are differently abled. There's just a huge gap in representation, and people climb to a certain level and then it's really hard to get to the next level. So I'm sort of ranting now. This wasn't where I expected to go at all, but I've just joined the board of the Directors Guild. So I feel like it's something I'm gonna pay attention to this year and maybe be a bit of a voice for. And like, obviously the gender thing is personal to me, but also I have an autistic brother. I come from a family with neurodiversity and various mental health things. We started out in a working class estate. So there's all these demographics that are just not very well represented in terms of getting financing in Ireland. So I guess that's like becoming a bit of a sort of mission of mine, just slowly building in the background. And at the same time, I'm being fortunate in that I have been getting work and I have been slowly building up my portfolio. And through all those training schemes that I mentioned, I did like 5 weeks of shadowing on a BBC Studios production. And I had Lenny Abramson as a mentor. I had Nasa Hardiman as a mentor. I had Aisling Walsh, like amazing directors who I really respect and revere. So I've been chipping away, which is fantastic, but I'm super aware of glass ceilings as I reach certain places, and it's sort of frustrating or disappointing. So yeah, there's a massive WhatsApp group of like female and female identifying directors, writers, people from the industry. And it's like bubbling with anger about the balance being so skewed. So it's sort of something that's just been on my mind a lot over the last few weeks.
So do you think that glass ceiling is for females, or the glass ceiling is generally you get somewhere in the industry no matter what gender you are, and it's very hard to move to the next level?
No, I think if you're white and male, you're most privileged. I think if you come from money, you're obviously in a much better position, because there's going to be huge periods of time where you don't make money, where you're between projects, especially if you're a writer or a director. So if you're not resourced, it's really hard to sustain that career because of those gaps. And I think if you just look at the Slate launch this year and the Slate launch last year that Screen Ireland have proudly up on their website, the number of women is extremely low, and people of colour and people who are differently abled are just not very well represented. And it was actually getting better since 2016, but something happened and it's starting to dip again in a very substantial way.
You see, I often wonder, because I'm married with 2 children, so I know how there's a shift in the household when children come in.
Yeah.
And I wonder, the stereotypical lean on is the female when children come into the house, that they are
primary carer.
The carer, yeah. And I often wonder, is there a thing where if a woman's working in the industry and it comes to a stage in her life that she decides she wants to have a family, and she does, the effect that then may have on the career, and does that then make it look like there's less females involved in the industry, and how easy is it for them to get back into the industry again?
That's a huge issue. That also, so there's a great group called Raising Films, and they advocate for that. And it might not just be children; it could be that you're caring for a parent or an elderly person or whoever that might be. And often the onus falls on the woman to be the carer. It's like that's the traditional mindset. And I think that there just needs to be more supports where you're facilitated in your caring role, whether it's job sharing or whether that is that there's childcare facilities available while you're shooting, so that it's not like, oh, you're a carer, well, you're not good enough, or, you're busy, or we don't want to support that. Or if that's sort of better integrated into the industry, then it's like, oh yeah, you're a carer. Okay, well, how do we facilitate that within our production? So these are all sort of conversations. And I think the care question is a huge question because, in your 20s, you're still learning, but you've got your ideas, you've got your energy, and it's kind of, you can begin to build your career. Yeah. And then in your 30s, you might want to start a family, or you might need to care for an elderly person. Yeah. And taking time out can be, I don't know if it's like necessarily damaging to your career, but building your career is all about conversations and making connections. And
yeah, but you're in your flow, and now you're doing something that's important to you personally, or it might be a situation that you just have to do, whether it's something you asked for or not. But then it's not easy just to flip back in a few years later.
And it's like everybody has moved on to another level in their careers. So you're trying to come in going, oh, who are my peers now? Who can I rely on or collaborate with? So yeah, I mean, I think directing and having children can be very difficult for women. I think maybe writing has a little bit more flexibility because you could work from home for a period of time. I think producing and I think just in the phase of being pregnant and having the baby and taking that time out. But having said that, there's so many more conversations around that. And I think there are more supports being brought in and being integrated into like a production model. So shifts are happening, and I don't understand how the numbers dropped to such a low level in terms of women writers and women directors or female identifying. So I'd love to understand that, and there might be someone out there who has like a very good insight into that.
But at least you're getting involved now at an executive level where you can help influence those decisions.
Or just keep that conversation very alive and very central so that it can be addressed. Because women are amazing storytellers, and have such a deep understanding of human nature, which is really what it is we're trying to talk about. So you really want to bring those voices to the table. And the same with people who are differently able. Like those lived experiences are so powerful. Like my brother with autism is always one of my great teachers because he sees everything so differently. Likewise, people of color, people from different ethnicities, like all of these diverse voices have so much to bring to the table. So it's just trying to facilitate. So I think just like my role will be keeping the conversation going because I'm on the creative side of the industry. I'm not an administrator or a gatekeeper, but I can kind of maybe be representative and keep talking about it and just get more stories out there and more stories of diversity. I think that's that's where it's exciting,
Excellent. Final question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to get into TV directing?
TV specifically?
Well, or film.
Or just directing in general?
Well, they're both very different. I don't know. Is there one that you kind of...
I would say with TV, the quality has gone up and up and up over the years. So there is amazing TV being made. So, there's no point being a snob and thinking that film is superior because I think some of the series that come out are so beautiful and give such breadth because there's more hours where you can allow characters to come to life. But I love film. My dream is to have a balance between the two. I think to someone starting out, just keep going. Just find a way, whatever that might be, even if it's, take a small job with a company or get out there with your phone. I mean, phones are amazing. You can shoot super high res, really beautiful footage on your phone. Just get out there and make something. It doesn't matter how small or amateur you think it is. It's something to show, and then the next one's going to be better. And as a kind of view of your life, you want to keep growing. You want to learn from what you've done and improve and develop and always sort of aspire. So have that momentum, and there's a mystery to that because you don't know where it's going to take you. But if that's sort of a goal, that's really powerful then because it keeps pulling you. So there you go. There's a few little nuggets.
Brilliant. Mia, that was one of the most wonderful conversations I've had. Thank you so much.
Fabulous. Thank you.
And continued success with all your work.
Brilliant. Thanks a million.
Mark Herbert, CEO and founder of Warp Films. Thanks so much for joining us in Garry Talks Film. And congratulations on the amazing production and also the amazing success that it has been, Adolescence.
Yes.
What a phenomenal show to be involved in and for you to have produced. It's just unbelievable. So there's going to be a talk later today at the summit where yourself and Toby and a few others on the panel are going to be discussing the making and the success of Adolescence. But for those who aren't lucky enough to be in at the panel discussion later today and are now listening to this podcast a week later, I mean, where do we start with Adolescence? I know Stephen Graham, the actor, was also involved as a creator and as a producer on it. But for him, my understanding is he felt that it was important to tell a story of what was going on and the domestic violence taking place in the United Kingdom. And I know you've been involved in, This Is England and stuff down the road. For you, what was the thing where you, as a producer, wanted to get involved in telling the story?
Well, I've obviously known Stephen for 20, he was in This Is England. So, and then the other creator and co-writer was Jack Thorne, who actually we brought on to work with Shane on the TV spin-off of This Is England. And we did 3 series with Jack. So there were people that I've done 5 shows with Jack, maybe 7 with Stephen. So we're good friends, and then they made a film, Boiling Point.
So when you say you're good friends, like, would you stay in touch off set, when you're not in production?
With Stephen, definitely.
So it's a genuine friendship.
Yeah, I went to Jack's wedding.
Okay.
So when you're working in that closely with people for that amount of time, you do develop good friendships. And I think me and Stephen are from the same sort of background, a bit sort of and so we kept in touch. We worked together a lot, and then they did a film called Boiling Point, which was a Phil Barantini amazing film done in one shot. And then Stephen had basically come up with this idea, was talking to Jack, said, would myself and Warp, my company, sort of produce it with them? They wanted someone who could who had got experience, because it wasn't an easy thing to make with the one shot element.
So that was decided early on.
It was decided to be a one shot. And we, so this was 3.5, 4 years ago. In fact, weirdly, we were at the BAFTAs. They were nominated for Boiling Point. I'd just done a film, Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which was both nominated in the Best British Film. We had a meeting that day about it. The script hadn't been written. And then literally, I read Jack and Stephen's first draft only a few weeks after that. And I literally was just shaking after reading. I finished it. They'd sent it to me. Then I said, I'm going to read it straight away. But I had to text Stephen and said, you're going to have to give me half an hour. I'm literally need to put the kettle on and just digest what I've just read. Not as a producer, actually, as a dad, as much as anything else. And look, everything you make has got to be good. But this just was off the charts, exceptional, And so it was, it was just one of these, a first episode that just blew me away, punched me in the gut, in the heart, all the things that I look for in a film or a TV series. It had all of that. And so it was like, let's go and make this. And then it was a kind of quite a slow, because obviously when you're doing something in this one shot element, the preparation to it is beyond belief. You have no edit to get out. I've got out of trouble on many films thanks to the edit.
Yes, of course.
A bit of music, a pick up here and there, some reshoots. I don't think I've ever made a film that's never had reshoots or pickups. So that was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of meticulous. There was no, like I say, there was no get out of jail with it.
No, but you're dealing with a large cast, loads of extras in the background, bringing in drones and rigs.
Yeah. Crazy.
You didn't make it easy for yourselves at all.
And you've got to, and suddenly it dawned on me. I remember talking to Phil, we were thinking, will we ever have a cheat get out of jail card? No, we're doing it. I was like, okay. I admired that. But when you're on the hook for the budget and the schedule, you're like, okay, this is going to be tricky.
Because even in the third episode, when it's the one-on-one interview, and it's kind of doing this 360 around the table and it's going behind the heads, I was like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity now for them to do that little cut to give everyone a break. But no, you kept it going. As
on everything, even what was interesting is if everybody had to be on their A game, from the runners to the camera ops to the sound to the extras to the AD department. Because if you were 52 minutes into an incredible take and an extra did something wrong, or you didn't move quite right, or there was something got in shot, you had to start all over again, which is quite terrifying, And we were dealing with Owen, who'd not acted before. We actually shot episode 3 first because we thought it was in a studio. There was the safety net of a space we controlled. weather-wise. It was ultimately, most of it was a two-hander. And it gave Owen, played Jamie, the opportunity to sort of develop this relationship with the camera team. And it was a nice way of introducing everybody to this crazy process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many takes did it take to do episode 3?
Well, we had this structure. We came up with, and actually we'd done This Is England, we've done lots of, Shane did love to do long one takes, you know. He'd get the actors such worked up, he'd just, you only had one chance. That would be, so we did a lot of one takes, but we had multiple cameras so we could cut. You know, and I'd worked on like 71, a film that we did, had this sort of like real-time element, and a lot of stuff I've done has been handheld, and the cameras, I like the way the cameras moving has always been part of our thing, often. So it took us a while to really, with my team, to meticulously plan the best way. So what we decided to do is we did each episode was 3 weeks. So what we would do in that 3 weeks, we would rehearse with the actors, and we'd almost break it down into little 10-minute sections. So we'd do the bit up to the arrest, or the bit this, and then we'd move and do this bit. And we just literally did that, honing it in, and you would notice things were not quite rhythmically right, that you might tighten up in an edit. So Jack, the writer, was there, Stephen was there, we'd tweak. And then week 2, we would do what we call technical rehearsal, where we would bring all the camera and the thing, and we would literally, we'd started off on Monday, literally walking it through. By the middle of the week, we brought the extras in, and we would just be almost like, so it became muscle memory. So the actors knew what they were doing, and the crew had to know where the camera was moving, where the boom should be, and all this. And we did that, and we reviewed the tech. We filmed those, and so we could look at them and go, like you would do in an edit, you go out, they're walking down a corridor, and that's too long, and you just cut them, but you couldn't do that because it was a one shot. So we would be constantly tweaking it, like move. And then the 3rd week we would shoot, and we would shoot a take in the morning, and we would shoot a break for lunch and have a take in the afternoon. And the kind of rule of thumb was if something went wrong in the first 20 minutes, we'd reset. But if it went beyond longer than that, because we were doing them with kids and their hours and stuff, you know, we had to just, but what we decided to do, which was really interesting, is we just carried on. So even if someone made a mistake, a line or a technical fault, we just carry on, because then it became this muscle memory, if you like. So, and interestingly, all the afternoon takes were always the best. It was interesting.
Yeah.
And each episode had a different rhythm.
And if, we'll say, an actor fluffed a line and improvised and it worked, would that have ended up in the final take?
Yeah, there was a couple of bits, like the episode 3 that you did, there's a bit where actually what was quite nice is Owen was tired and he had a little bit of a cough. But weirdly, somehow that tiredness helped the performance. And there was a couple of bits that, so it was, the scripts were tight, you know, we couldn't improvise too much.
Yeah.
Because this is why we'd been working it out so meticulously for days. Almost every beat was like, every second was accounted for. But obviously there were times that, like, there were bits where, like, there was one day we were in the studio and we were in the police station studio and the lights went out, right? And Faye, who played one of the detective, he went, "Oh, they never play the electric bill."
Okay.
And they came back on again. And you know, had that been the only good take, we might have had to use it. ADR was helpful, because obviously when you're using mics, the boom's not always in the right position. Yeah. So we did, you know, sometimes you have...
They're mic'd underneath.
They're mic'd, so you might have a crackly bit of mic, especially on the school stuff, you know, so we could, you know, and because you are doing it in one camera, one take, there was often where you would just like, you couldn't see their lips, so you might just ADR that bits in.
Okay, yeah.
But ultimately it was like theatre.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And just adding in the layers and so on. It was beautiful. I mean, for me, episode 4 was like really intense.
Yes.
And it showed, which was important to show, is, you know, because the show didn't lean into the effect it was having on the victim's family. It was the effect it was having on the family.
The family, yeah.
And what one person caused to their own family.
Yes.
And yeah, there's so many elements in that. And I don't think, it's great for me to say, looking at it afterwards, but I couldn't see it working better. Shot, multicam, cut to different, like it was the intensity of this ongoing thing that made it so real.
Well, you can't look away.
Yeah.
There's no break. Yeah. So you are in it. And somehow by being in and not cutting and not being able to like sometimes breathe, or like it gave you this immediacy. And also I think what was important is that we weren't going to try and say this kid, you know, a lot of times you as creators, you have a point of view. It was the mum and dad's fault. It was the peers. It was the mates. It was the school. We tried to show 4 moments in time over that, and that from the arrest episode to that episode 4 was 13 months in story time. So just picking these real bits of hours just meant that we were trying to sort of show that it wasn't just this one thing that caused what happened. It was a variety of things. And that was a conscious thing. But also what was interesting, because when you do things like that, you can sometimes feel it's gimmicky. But weirdly, once you just saw those rehearsals, you realise that that's the only way that somehow just telling it in one take was the way to go.
Yeah. No, because, you know, there's a daughter in the family who's very emotionally aware of what's around her and her parents and so on. So it's not like it can be, you know, it's the same environment, you know, that the Jamie character grew up in. It's the same school. It's, you know, and I thought it was important to show that because it's easier to brush it in a black and white scenario.
Well, also, you know, I mean, look, it was really important that we didn't show the family to be, you know, they were hardworking family, right? They were good family. They were together, you know, and often with those that you might show, oh, the dad's, you know, you can see it, and the dad's an alcoholic, or they have poverty, or these things, or that can have a view. And we were like, no, you've got to think this could be your family. This is. And that classic thing is that you think, like when I was a kid on my bike, no mobile phones, I used to be out, my mum would be worried where was I, and we'd be like getting up to all kinds of stuff, but it was like, not bad, you know, like, but you'd be out. Whereas weirdly, you think that your kids they're safe in the bedrooms, but actually that's where some of the biggest damage can come, you know? Yeah. So for us, it was really important that we kind of just showed these moments and let the audience decide. Yeah.
And then it led on to a conversation in society because a number of parents were getting their children to sit down and watch it. And I think it was good as well because the show didn't become grotesque. It wasn't, you know, sexualized or anything like that. So a parent could sit down with a young teen and then have that conversation. Which I mean, is really important.
The amount of people that have come up to me, whether it's in a pub in Sheffield or like a football match or a gym or whatever, and gone, oh, you know what? I had a chat with my son, my daughter, teenager, you know. And I did think it helped provoke communication and just saying to people, just ask them, just talk to them, even though it might be an uncomfortable chat. Yeah. That is somehow, just by doing that, because it was always that thing, had he had that chat with Jamie, would he still have gone through? You know, and it was always just, and that's what I think good drama should do, really.
And I'm sure you would have had the conversation one stage of, is this something for BBC? Is this something for ITV? Is this something for Channel 4? And it's Netflix is who you ended up working with. How did that come into the conversation?
We actually developed it somewhere else, weirdly. We were developing it, and then, as with a lot of things, people change, especially bigger international companies. And so we developed it somewhere else, and they pulled out. And so, but then I'd worked with Anne, Toby's boss, who I knew the talk with, and Mensa, who I'd worked with her at Sky. She's great. And I think what was interesting is that, I'm sure but the other drama that we were doing at the same time was a BBC reunion, the show. And obviously, when you go to BBC, they pay a bit of money, then you get to international money. And what's interesting is I've talked to buyers in the international market who still say they might not have bought Adolescence. So we need, because even though it wasn't a massively expensive show, but because we had to do that meticulous rehearsal and every extra had to be in every day, it actually, the costs was more expensive than just doing it conventionally by about 30%. So what we needed with Netflix was just and they did exactly what I did. They read that first script and they were in. I mean, they literally, we pitched it to them just before Christmas. I got a call 3 days before Christmas saying,
nice,
we're going to go for it.
And did you have to bring Plan B in to
No,
get the
Plan
Netflix
B had already
conversation?
been in. So Plan B were in from so Stephen had worked with Brad before and started.
I like how you say Stephen had just worked with Brad before.
And so I think they were having conversations about the idea of the love boiling point. Have you done a one shot? Have you tried doing this one? You know, and then so alongside the conversations I'm having with Stephen, I think Phil and Stephen had a chat with Plan B, and it was like, and then we just all just worked together on it, you know, and we just pulled together everybody's skills, contacts. That was 6 months after that meeting we were shooting.
It's brilliant.
Still not even a year ago today. We were still finishing at 4.
That is crazy.
Mad, isn't it?
And the effect it's had.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal television show. Congratulations and congrats and well earned with all the recognition you get from it, and just be so proud that you were involved in the production because it's just a fantastic piece of television. And you're not resting on your laurels. You're getting involved in another production shortly again.
Yeah. We can't say anything about it yet, but we're in development. You know, and I've got to deal, like Stephen's got a company, Matriarch, with his wife, Hannah, who's a brilliant producer. We've known them for years, and we have a development deal with them. So I'm working on another thing with Jack. You know, like this isn't, like I said, this isn't a one-off. It's kind of 20 years of working with these people, you know. And so we're carrying on doing somewhat. I mean, there's not going to be an Adolescence 2.
Yeah, of course.
But the people that we work with, we carry on working with.
But I think in fairness, with the work that you focus on in North England compared to, we'll say, what comes out of London, it's very different, but you proudly reflect and represent North England. Yeah.
Well, I know the world.
Yeah.
I know the characters. Yeah. So I always believe in authenticity in everything you do.
Yeah.
So whether it's the gangs in This Is England or the family in Adolescence or the crazy people in Phoenix Nights, which I made like before Warp, I grew up, you know, I know those characters.
Yeah.
So I can authentically tell those stories with the right team.
Well, we continue to enjoy watching them on screen.
You, Gary.
Enjoy the rest of your time in Galway. Thanks again, Mark.
Yeah, you're welcome. Cheers.
Well, what a great way to end season 1 of Garry Talks Film. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you found it interesting or insightful in hearing how Irish stories make it from pitch to screen, please do leave us a positive review online or even share the episode with a friend, colleague, or loved one. Thanks to our guests today, to Mark, to Mia, to Proinsias, and to Nora-Jane. Really enjoyed the conversation and their company. If you want to find out more information about the podcast, head over to GarryTalks.com. But well done to everyone involved in this year's FÍS TV Summit. It was a huge success. Everyone thoroughly enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing what they have in store for 2027.